Experience the joy of watching your friends and family's faces light up when you feed them wild game you harvested and made into delicious sausages. Or meet you barbecue and grill with the finest seasonings available. Visit our friends at waltons.com to find everything you need to turn wild game into tasty meat snacks or spice up your barbecue with new flavors and seasonings. With over 500 seasonings to choose from, there's something that everyone will love. They even have step-by-step videos and how-to articles at Meatgistics to help you go from animal to edible. Use coupon Rangers15 at checkout to save 15% on your first order at waltons.com. Waltons, everything but the meat.
This is Robin Hearn from News Channel 6 Now in Wichita Falls, and you are listening to the Rangers Report podcast.
Ranger Report. Yeah, the Ranger Report. If you want the inside scoop, listen to the Ranger Report. Oh, here we go.
This is the Ranger Report podcast. News, insights, predictions, interviews, and information about the Texas Rangers from the major leagues to the minor leagues. And now, here are your hosts, Ben Dieter and CJ Berryman.
All right, I'll tell you the same thing I told everyone else. We had Victor Rojas on one time, and we had like a great conversation like you and we just did, and it went, 30 minutes, and we were like, that was so good. Realized I never hit record.
I've done that before. That's the worst feeling in the world.
I emailed Victor, and he sent back that he was really upset. He said, man, I gave you my best stuff. How could you not hit record? And then he said, no, I'm just kidding.
That's funny. I've been there. It's an awful feeling.
Yeah,
he totally understood. He was just like, no, we'll do it again. Don't worry.
CJ wanted to kill me, but Victor understood.
No comment.
Yeah, no comment. Thank you. All right. Well, welcome to the Ranger Report podcast. We are thrilled to be joined today by the Rangers Radio Network's Jared Sandler. Jared, how are you doing?
I'm great, guys. Thanks so much for having me.
Yeah, thanks for coming on again, man. All right, let's start. We'll start where we started. We had Matt Hicks on last week, and because it's still happening, what kind of tear is Nate Lowe on right now?
It's been a lot of fun to watch. I remember when the Rangers acquired him, I was obviously familiar with him. He had, spent some time with Tampa Bay. I vaguely familiar as he was coming up through their system, but I remember the conversation was like, is he an everyday player or is he just, a platoon guy? And, the first month of the season in 2021, he really struggled against lefties. And so the thought was, all right, hey, that's fine. We'll be a platoon guy and you can have platoons. Platoons work. You just got to have the right pieces to make it work. And then I think the date is like April 28th or 27th, somewhere in late April. He had like a multi-hit game against a lefty. And from that point moving forward, I think I haven't checked actually in the last week or so, but I think his batting average among left-handed hitters against left-handed pitching from that point on is the best in baseball. And his power numbers aren't necessarily the best, but they're up there. They're really good. And he's just become a complete everyday hitter. Now, is he perfect? No. He's obviously not perfect, but when you make a trade with the Tampa Bay Rays, you kind of are nervous, right? They don't miss very often, but I don't know if I bet if you ask people at the Rays if they expected this out of Nathanial Lowe, they'd probably tell you, we thought he was good, but maybe not this good. And the season he's having is really impressive. And I think it's put the Rangers in a great position. The reality is, the Rangers have a lot of options with Nathaniel Lowe and whether that's, him being a part of the lineup next year or, interest drawn in trade talks this offseason. And, that's a testament to Nate and the season he's had. But the thing that's impressed me the most about him, what's in my opinion made him most successful, is that he has developed a really good understanding of his strengths and his weaknesses. And I think it's easy to say that, but I think it's tough, especially for athletes, who have egos and they're used to, the bravado of being the best and this and that, of really recognizing and embracing weaknesses. And what I mean by embracing it is not just knowing that you have it, but dealing with it however it is, it makes sense to deal with it, whether it's, obviously on one hand, trying to get better at those things and turning weaknesses into areas of neutrality or even strengths. But in Nathaniel's case, it's bread and butter. But if it's a strike, it's a strike. And that doesn't mean you need to swing at it on 0-0 and he lays off that pitch unless he's looking for it because he knows people are going to attack that zone. But if it's in a 2-strike countersign, he'll foul the pitch off. Whereas a lot of guys with their weaknesses, they swing and miss. And I think, if you really were to go back and go at bat by bat here over the second half, you would notice a lot of foul balls in areas of the zone, specifically with fastballs, in which he does not typically have success, and he forces pitchers to come to him. And when they do, he takes advantage of it.
I'm glad you brought up his batting average against lefties, Jared, because for the year he's hitting .346 against them. That's a stark contrast from what we were used to seeing.
Yeah.
Yeah, and that's huge, guys, right? Like Nathanial Lowe and Corey Seager, both lefties who hit lefties really well. And, teams are still going to try and match up because oftentimes they feel like it's more advantageous for their pitcher. But when it's advantageous for their pitcher and disadvantageous for their hitter, then it really swings in favor of the pitcher. When it's not a disadvantage for the hitter, then it just becomes another matchup. And, it's a part of, I know the Rangers have struggled late in games and obviously their record is what it is. But it's one reason why the Rangers have been way more competitive, late in games and against bullpens this year compared to last, because you take some of their best hitters and they don't really have matchup volatility.
Yeah, and he's hitting .301 for the year, and then he might be that. You said this stat on the radio the other night. I believe it was against Minnesota that he was hitting .299, and he might be, as it looks like right now, he might be the first Ranger to hit for 300 since, was it 2017, Elvis Andrus?
It was 16 with Elvis 16. And Beltre. Yeah, okay. Beltre hit 300 and Elvis, I think, hit 302. So, okay. I mean, and it just doesn't happen. And I'm not, I'm not a big, I think sometimes I get labeled because A, I'm not 65, and B, I do love the advanced stats, but I'm not one of these guys who thinks that a game should be played on a computer. And I'm not one of these guys who thinks that batting average is irrelevant. Now, I don't think batting average is more important than on base or slugging and then, together OPS, but I do think batting average is significant because no one is going to complain when there's a guy who gets hits. And hitting 300, especially in a year in which offense is down across the league, hitting 300 is an incredible accomplishment, and it's been fun to watch.
Yeah, but CJ, what's his WOBA? No, I'm just kidding.
But hey, guys, listen, I need to be fair. I love WOBA. I think WOBA is a very valuable stat, but the problem is in this sport that we all love that is losing interest by the day is that some of these stats that front offices use to evaluate players, and that's a gauge for me, right? Like if a front office, if people whose jobs are on the line based on their evaluation are going to use a certain statistic, then it means something. If they're going to, if it's like XYZQ plus times 7, and they're like, I don't know what the hell that means. I don't care about that, right?
Yeah.
Right? But the problem is, how do you explain XWOBA? It's a very, you have to have a visual, you have to, and even then, and so it's tough. It's tough for us to have a conversation about XWOBA because people listening have no clue what that is. So I think that hurts the game, but it's just the reality of it. So I think XWOBA is a great stat, but I mean, it's a tough one to talk about because it's a tough one to explain.
Yeah, it really is. And speaking of, we're talking about batting average being down across the league. Really, the past couple of years, it's been down. Yeah, you got a guy like Adolis Garcia who had his hitting streak end on Sunday. He struck out in the 9th inning. But I believe it was Evan Grant wrote that there is something to take away from that at bat. It's that, and from what Adolis Garcia did through that entire hitting streak, it wasn't a blow away. He hit 330, 340 during the streak. It was kind of like a little over 300. So it was like a hit a game, but his at bats are getting better and better. And so in talking about, learning what your weaknesses are you and being able to understand it and adapt to your own weaknesses and what pitchers are going to do? Do you see Adolis doing the same thing?
Yeah, I think so. First of all, he's got a lot better hitting off-speed pitches this year.
Yeah.
And, for a guy in his, let's just call it his second year. I mean, I know he didn't make his major league debut last year, but for all intents and purposes, that was his first year. I mean, he was technically a rookie, and this is his second year. A lot of second-year players who have a similar profile to Adolis really struggle their second year. And by profile, I mean they swing and miss a lot, and they chase a lot.
Yeah.
And the other thing for Adolis that's really specific to him is, he hasn't been great against velocity. And we're in a day and age where velocity is the norm. It's not the exception. And I thought he was a strong candidate to really regress. I had concerns that by mid-May, Adolis wouldn't be an everyday player. And to his credit, that is absolutely not the case. And he has grown. Now, is Adolis, he's such an interesting guy because he does kind of defy a lot of the trends that suggest sustainable or consistent success. He still is not a high on base guy. He still is someone who swings and misses a lot and chases a lot. And he's still not great against velocity. He's gotten better, but he's really improved in his areas of strength to maximize the output in those areas. And he has made other, he hasn't gone backwards in areas. He hasn't maybe made big jumps. He hasn't gone backwards. So, he still, to me, isn't a guy you're going to build a lineup around. I don't think a World Series contending lineup is going to have Adolis Garcia hitting third or fourth or even fifth. But I think sometimes, when I say that, people think, oh, he's just, he's not a good hitter. Now, you look at the lineups of teams that are competing for a World Series, or we view as World Series, competitors this year. Look at who's hitting sixth for them. Look at who's hitting seventh. We're not talking about a guy who is a slap hitter who, might hit 5 home runs a year. Those are still really good hitters. And I think he slots more into that sort of a role. And then on top of that, obviously he's good on the bases. He will make some aggressive mistakes, but overall, he is a value added on the bases, and he's really good defensively, really, really good. And he is a winning player. And then the other thing is he brings energy. I don't think one of my biggest pet peeves is when people take a player and because of their ability, they try to position them as someone who they're not. And a lot of times that is as a leader, right? Not everyone is wired to be that way. And the reality is, I'll take Cole Calhoun, and Cole Calhoun's not a part of the future or anything, but Cole Calhoun is a fiery, competitive personality, and that's great. You can't have sick Cole Calhoun. That's not going to work. That's going to be a clubhouse that butts heads. You probably don't need 26 Adolis Garcia. I think you can have them because, to me, he's a high energy, just beacon of positivity and joy. But this is a team that's got a lot of stoic personality, and Adolis Garcia is a very refreshing cup of energy and joy and jubilance. And I you can't measure that, but I don't think that's just some immaterial thing. I think there's value there, and especially on a team that still has a lot of young guys. And I think he's been a very valuable part of what the Rangers have done this year. Obviously not through the lens of competing in 2022 because they're not going to be a playoff team. But as far as their growth and steps they've taken towards getting back to the playoffs, I think Adolis Garcia has been a big part of that. And I'll also then add the same thing I added for Nathanial Lowe. Long term, that could mean as a part of the everyday lineup, or it could mean as a part of a move that ultimately helps the team in other areas. But he's going to help them either way.
Yeah, and speaking of, you brought up young guys like Duran and Leody Taveras. I wanted to talk about a guy who only one team has figured out how to slow him down on the bases so far, and that was Houston by giving a home run up to Bubba Thompson. The only way that you made him jog around the bases instead of sprint. But how impressive has he been in his debut, just trying to show that maybe he belongs as a guy coming in off the bench?
Yeah, he really has been. And he hasn't hit for a lot of power. Obviously, the first game of the Houston series hit his first career home run. But that hasn't been his calling card so far. But he's competed, and the concern for me with Bubba was that he's not a guy who has demonstrated great plate discipline.
No,
even as he's had success, he's a very aggressive hitter, and usually at the big league level, people are going to feast on that, and that's going to come back and bite you. And so far, he's found ways to compete, and his speed's been a big part of it. He's not unwilling to bunt, and he's not unwilling to use that as a weapon. Bubba does have power, right? He's not a 30 home run hitter. Yeah, I think he can hit. If things work out for Bubba, if Bubba establishes himself and reaches a reasonable level of whatever his potential is, I think Bubba is a guy who could have 20 home runs in a season. I think he's got that type of power, but he's so valuable just getting on base, and so he's not someone who you necessarily want to compromise getting on base for the power. I don't know that we have any definitive answers on Bubba long term, but I think it's definitely been encouraging, the success that he's had so far.
It's a hell of a defensive outfield with him, Leote, and Adolis.
They cover a lot of ground. That's fun to watch, and that's been important for this team. This is not a team that's got a great infield defense, and it's something that's got to get better. But their outfield defense has been really good here, especially of late.
Well, speaking of a beacon of joy and a cup of just positivity, bringing that to the club, you can't go any further than Tony Beasley, I don't think. And how do you think he's done? And we talked to Matt about this, and he said he's talked to a lot of opposing coaches and whatnot and managers, and he said just about every one of them said it's been a long time coming, or this should have happened a long time ago for somebody. Team.
Tony Beasley's a great just human being. I think most importantly, I know that we look at him through the lens of athletics.
Did you see him sing "Happy Birthday" to Taylor and Robin last night?
He sings it to everyone. That's his thing. If it's your birthday, to me, I have an in-season birthday, and it's who really likes a lot of it. Embarrassing, but like in front of 40 people, he just like puts his hand on you and starts singing "Happy Birthday." He's a great guy. I don't know. And he even said like he's someone who he really lives in the moment. I don't know that Tony Beasley the last few years has been like ladder climbing to become a manager. I just don't think that's. I think he genuinely loves being able to be in a position to impact people on and off the field. And I think now that he is in the interim role, I think he's obviously enjoying that, and I don't think he would ever turn down being the manager of a team. But I don't think it's I think there's certain people who they're in certain roles, but their ultimate goal is to be a manager. And I don't want to frame it as if he's not ambitious. I think he's kind of felt like, and he's a very spiritual, religious man, and I think he really does believe like whatever the path is for him, that's the path. Odds are probably not great that he's going to be this team's manager beyond this year. I also would tell you that I think it's very likely that he is given the option. Let me rephrase that. I think it's very likely that he's given the option. He would absolutely stay a support staff again. So, but it's been great, and he's got so much respect from the players. I think empathy is such a huge part of this role. And I want to also make clear, I think Chris Woodward was someone who had that as well. I think that Chris Woodward is, also someone who, just an awesome human being. But I think empathy is such a big part of the role. And I think Tony Beasley has demonstrated that. He's got the ear of the players. And I don't know, it's so tough for an interim manager in such a short time to make an impact.
Yeah.
So I don't want to overstate it, but I do think that, he's kind of reinstilled a little bit of grit. And he, Bees has an old school mentality, and that in some ways is probably not going to serve him well in an interview, because, I think that there's got to be at least a little bit of a mix of the new school stuff. And
I think Bees was raised on baseball a certain way, and he's convicted in that. The things that matter to him are things that I think it's important for these guys to hear.
Yeah.
And I think that's an impact that he's had.
I agree with you. And speaking of character, I've noticed, we've interviewed a lot of minor league players along the way the last few years. And we've talked to Jeff Wilson and John Moore, who do their podcast. They've done the same thing. The way that, the character guys that the Rangers are bringing into the franchise are just amazing right now. Like, we haven't talked to one guy that we've been like, well, that guy is that guy. We didn't really like talking to him.
Yeah. So you're talking about the character guys though, right? And I do think that's important. You're not going to have 26 Boy Scouts in uniform and then, but it is important, and especially in the leadership positions, again, because I just think, what goes into being a leader, it's not about giving the Newt Rockne rah-rah speeches. Those moments are so few and far between. It's just the idea of showing up and looking someone in the eye and knowing that they care about you and that they want to help you and they want to be a part of your journey. And I think good people feel that way. I think good people aren't just only in it for themselves, even though that's still in a lot of cases that has to be their priority, especially in this sport where, it's a team sport, but it's such an individual sport, and the individuality is important. But I think it's important to have people who care. And I think that's been a point of emphasis for the Rangers. And I'd also say this, I don't think that's like, I don't think there are organizations out there who are like, we want total, what holes, but but hey, I'd also say this though, there's great value in having guys on the field who are that, they want to rip your heart out, and they don't care. It doesn't matter who's in their way. They are going to just at all costs, try and accomplish whatever they're accomplishing. But I think in a lot of those leadership positions, that's definitely been a point of emphasis.
Well, I think I speak for Ben here when I say, as we wrap up here, we enjoy listening to the broadcast. You three guys, Matt Hicks, obviously Eric Nadell, and yourself are just awesome. It's just such a, if you can't watch the game on TV, or even if you are, sometimes I'm watching the game on TV and have you guys on the radio. So you guys do a wonderful job, and we can't thank y'all enough for being cordial enough to come on here and chat baseball with us. We could talk to you all night long, but you haven't been married that long. You got kids now, so I think we better let you run off. But I can't let you go without a little bit of a couple funny nuggets.
Yeah.
So we've had our fair share of ladies on this podcast, but somehow you're the only one that's come on here and said that I looked hot.
That was last time, right?
Yeah, it was.
That's when I remember that. You did. You look great. Hey,
yeah.
I'm not afraid to admit it.
You're still number one in my book too, sweetheart.
We had some great cologne talk with Matt Hicks last week.
I was about to bring that up too, because I was listening to the broadcast where you and Eric and Matt were talking about his Agua de Joe moment.
Yeah,
with Mrs. Hicks, and I tweeted that I've worn Agua de Joe for 20 years. It's my go-to, and you said you have it too. And I think Mrs. Hicks is the only one that I've ever heard that didn't just love it.
Yeah, so I'm not like savvy at all. So I don't even know what I use now, but I do know I basically use whatever, like once a year, someone will give me cologne as a gift, and I don't run through cologne that much. So I just use whatever's given to me. But at one year it was Aqua de Joe, and I liked it. So, if I ever was in a position where I had to buy it, I would absolutely buy it.
Yeah. And I told Matt this too. It's kind of embarrassing, but hey, I like to smell good, but I've got 11 different kinds of cologne, and I have a different cologne for depending on what color I wear. So,
is that a thing?
Yeah, it's a thing with me, but Agua de Joe is my white and purple go-to.
Yeah. After you admit that, CJ, you need to get a girlfriend.
Yeah, that's. Can I ask the reasoning? What's the reasoning behind that?
No, there really isn't. I'm just weird with how I smell. It's
okay.
That's a quirk.
No, I'm weird. Quirk. Yeah, I've got a lot of quirk. I mean, I'm not knocking I just didn't know if there was like a strategy behind it.
No, there is no strategy. It's just hey, I think a cork. This is a smell that goes good with maroon.
Well, to be honest with you, it's not the weirdest quirk I've heard. I have a friend who has left-footed socks and right-footed socks. Like he has to keep them separated. He knows which ones are for his left feet and which ones are his right feet. And I mean, I'm lucky if I match socks when I get up in the morning. I mean, I'm a teacher. Nobody looks at my feet, so it's not really a big deal.
It's like a Robert Barone quirk from Everybody Loves Raymond, where he has to separate the goods and the plenties.
Yeah, exactly. Well, good looking CJ and Cologne talk aside, Jared, we always appreciate your time, sir.
Ben and CJ, I appreciate you guys, and your listeners would never know this, but I'm going to tell them I missed out on an interview earlier in the week, and I made you guys wait on this one. And I'm very type A. My schedule is, I try to keep it tight, and so I don't like when people do that to me. So I sincerely apologize. But you guys are great, and I appreciate it.
No, man, we appreciate you very much, and we hey, we know that you're busy. We're all busy, So shit happens. I'll say it.
Hey, next time I cover a game, I'll buy you the staff dinner.
That works.
Hey, while the game was going on today, Jared, did you see that our Spurs ended up drawing?
So if I was doing pre and post, I would have been watching the whole thing.
Yeah.
When I'm doing play by play, which I was today, I'm too. If I know if I'm watching, like if it's on, I will watch it, and it's not good. So I saw, I get the updates for goals and stuff, and I saw there was a penalty kick that was overturned because of VAR.
And our only goal ended up being an own goal. So
you soccer people.
Yeah.
Or excuse me, football. My bad. Sorry.
Come on, you Spurs.
Go back and watch it, right? So I'll go back and watch it, but I'm just happy to get out of West Ham with a point. I mean, that just that has not happened very much in recent years. So I'm not upset about that.
They're a team. They're obviously West Ham's not a walkover team. They're not bad by you.
Yeah, they got off to a slow start, but that's not a bad team. So, I mean, I don't think we're playing well to start the year, but if not playing well means we haven't gone out of a match without any points, I'm okay with that.
Yeah, that's fine. I'm down with it because it's going to get better.
If Erling Haaland's going to score 3 goals a match, I mean, we're all playing for second anyway. So what does it matter?
Yeah. Man City, man, they're turning into the Patriots right now.
It's unreal. Yeah.
All right. Well, Jared, thanks again. We will talk to you again probably in the off season, sir.
Appreciate it, guys. Looking forward to it as always.
All right. Thanks, Jared.
Everybody.
Take care.
Bye-bye.
Thanks for listening to the Ranger Report podcast. Find us on Twitter, Facebook, and at therangerreport.com.